right? So obviously the first one was the Heretics versus Fnatic game, which did anyone actually really believe Heretics could win this game? Do you know what I mean? Like, I know people tried to bill it because people tried to do this thing where like they want to say that Heretics like is good or like that it's fine that they placed where they did. But the problem I have with that is like, I don't think they were a bad team at all. I actually think even finishing fourth is fine if you look at the way the team played in general. They were around that sort of a level. Maybe it's a slight overshoot for them. The problem I have is like, I can't get past like the Evie angle. I can't. Like when I watch this team, I'm like I actually it's like the same thing when we get to XL later with Peach Dom. It's like it's not quite as bad, but I don't want to actually like give the team props because I think that player is so fucking whack / doing nothing. In this case, Evie is actually just whack. Like so. Did anyone actually believe they could ever beat Fnatic? Like, Fnatic would have to play really bad for me to lose this.
I started to believe in the second game that they could. Because like the first game they essentially stomped them, and the second game they were just beating their ass in the early game. So I thought that like at that point I'm like, damn, is like Fnatic just gonna blow it all here? It just felt like they were choking out of their mind. There was no synergy between the lanes. Like the enemy junglers just getting a million ganks off. There's this like weird obsession with Trundle right now in the LEC. I'm not exactly sure why. I can understand it as a counter pick into Sejuani specifically, but people are playing it into Maokai, which I think is just a bad matchup. I think as Maokai you could just take phase rush and you're fine in this matchup. Yeah, I mean, like when you were watching the series, it felt like Fnatic really got off to like a weird start. I think Trimby is just not really good on engaged supports. It seems like before he was better comparatively when, you know, it was like Nautilus Leona meta. When he's playing like Alistar, when he's playing Nautilus nowadays, it just doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel like he has that power within the game. So I thought Fnatic would win the series before the series, but during the series, it definitely felt winnable for Heretics.
I mean, that's the problem with Fnatic in general, though. It's like, I have to say, mate, it's funny that they really did have a chance to go to the finals, this split, because even though they can be good, like they have a mode they take into where they do look really good, but like they always feel a bit like a glass cannon, if you know what I mean. Like they can just they can completely crumble if you fuck them up. I mean, even the comps they were playing, like, dude, they were playing some pretty ballsy comps like later, without going too far later on. Like against XL, they were just playing all those fucking crazy poke comps, like. And the problem with this team is I actually think this is actually, we didn't mention this before, but I'll actually give props to like the Fnatic coach and stuff. They seem like they've done a pretty good job too.
Yeah, I mean the coaching staff seems like it's done a fine job in certain like aspects. I think that their drafts are built to enable the correct players on the team most of the time. So they have like Razork on some type of like enabler champion, and they put Humanoid as the carry, something that he's going to be relevant in. The Annie drafts weren't so much this, but I felt like they found a lot of their success by putting Humanoid on Jace, giving him agency within the game, give Noah agency within the game. I think that that's like a way that you can complement the coaching staff. I think when it comes to macro, it's still weird to watch Fnatic games. I mean, they ended up out macroing Heretics, but like Heretics just look off, and when they played against, for example, XL, it just didn't feel like Fnatic was able to compete with them like team wise. So I guess some aspects of the coaching look good, and then other aspects of the way the team plays, I think you could criticize the coaching in terms of how they played the map. It feels like Fnatic is the team that, this is what I always say about Razork. He'll make 5 good plays, and then he'll make one catastrophic play that will erase everything else that he's done in the game. So he'll make 5 good plays, and he'll have one play that's bad, and it will just erase everything. And Fnatic in general does this a lot. I mean, the series that they played versus, I believe it was it SK? It was either SK or, yeah, I think it might have been, it was either SK or when they played against Mad Lions. But there was one play where they had killed over and over again. They had, you know, Razork is like 5-0 or something. They make a play top, like Humanoid makes the play top. He's resetting, and for some reason, the support in jungle, I think it was like Trundle Nautilus, tried to kill a Cassio mid, and they see no one on the map when they're doing this. There's no vision of anyone, and suddenly all 3 members of the enemy team show up. You know, support jungle just come. They cover the Cassio. It's like such a high risk, like almost 0 reward play to go for, because you can't really kill a Cassio, and then the whole game just feels even / losing. So Fnatic is tough to watch in that respect, because you don't feel like even when they have big leads, they're going to like close it out well. They kind of are the team that gets leads, throws, and then they like kind of end up winning sometimes like in a late game situation.
The only thing is, though, like in this actual series, the Heretics one, it did look. I want to get your take on this. Like, yeah, I obviously, yes, Heretics did win the first game and they were doing well in the second game. Didn't that first game look a bit like that was almost like a troll draft from Fnatic, wasn't it? Like, what were they doing with that? Like they got it sorted out later and they had it nailed. Like, as far as I can tell, by the way, once Fnatic played the correct champions, Heretics just didn't have anything to do. They didn't even play any of the champions. They couldn't take anything away from them. But like, the first draft looks a bit sus, doesn't it? For game one.
I think there's aspects of it that look sus. I think Zeri is not it. I mean, Zeri is really nerfed. Some people are still playing it. I mean, Ruler played it, and while Ruler was playing it, Noah is actually tweeting out like he's like, "God damn, Ruler is so good," and I'm like, "Shit, is this motherfucker gonna play Zeri?" Like,
it's like that thing where Carrier just tricked all the Western supports and think they could play whatever they wanted at support.
Yeah, they were like,
you ain't him, bro. You ain't him.
Yeah, it's like, please stop playing Kalista support. Like, you've made your whole fucking career playing like Nautilus and Leona, and you have the audacity to think that a no-hand player like you could play fucking Kalista. Like, I couldn't believe that shit. But yeah, Zeri is a champion that I just think is not that strong right now. People are trying to make it work with Static Shiv because it was actually so OP before, and people have practiced a lot of Zeri, so they want to be able to use that. Like, if they've played it, if they think they played it at a really high level, they're trying to find ways for it to be viable. I just think it's unnecessary. I mean, Varus is stronger. I think if you want to play a nerf champion, you can play a Philios. You have Kaisa, which is really OP. Zaya is really OP right now. I think you should just stick to those champions and let Zeri just die until they inevitably rebuff it for Worlds.
Because the rest of the series for me, once Fnatic just stabilized the draft, basically, like I said, dude, I don't even blame the actual coaching staff for Heretics. Like, the fact they could get this far shows me they did something. They could never have won a best of 5 like this, mate. Like, you could see in the draft, they're just out of options. Like, they can't take anything away from Fnatic, and they couldn't. Like, there's only so many bans in the game. Like, I don't think they could have done anything here, mate. Like, with the players they have, like, my main focus on the Heretics side is just if they can keep the core of the team and upgrade the team, then they could be good next year. That's basically all I have to say about Rex. Like, no diss. I've already done all the rants about Evie. He's just not a good player. I understand why they kept him over Ruby. If people don't know, that probably was even the right choice if you look at the lanes they play and how they were fucking the team. But you have to just make upgrades if you're Rex. If you can keep Jankos, he's still under contract. If you can keep the core of this team and make an actual real top lane signing and maybe even support as well, this could actually be a good team. This team could be in a final in the future.
Yeah. I mean, the scary thing for me is, they always say that you're only as good as your last game. And Evie's last games were actually like his best games all year. So is Heretics just gonna cope themselves into actually keeping this guy on the roster? Like, oh man, like he was showing some improvement towards the end. Like, maybe he could be good next year. Like, I could see an angle where they just, provide me with content for another year, just, saying the obvious, like, this guy is clearly not good. I mean, you know how doomed the game is when game 4 you see Evie lock in Lilia. Everything that you've done the whole season relies on Evie being the standout on Lilia of all champs, like a very spacing based champion. Yeah. I knew it was fucking doomed when I saw that shit.
That's so mental, isn't it? By the way, as an aside, that's why if you're actually a Heretics fan, like you want them next year to just get a better player instead of Evie and being a good team, you should be glad they didn't make it to the fucking season finals. Like, that would actually be the worst thing, because what you're talking about there, Dom, like, there's, like, I mean, the worst example ever in history, it didn't happen because they made the super team, was, you remember after the season 8 one where the G2 team beat RNG? I was scared they would just keep that bot lane, dude. I was so scared, because I get why the result would make like a pleb who doesn't know the game in a boardroom, like, keep those guys, like, but you just know, like, that's the best we could ever have done, and we're never going to do that again. So, like, I agree with you. It's actually a good thing that they didn't make a run here. Like, if they could have made it, it could have made like the copium kick in. Whereas I would hope what happens now is you look at the pieces you have, like, you got Jankos, you want to keep him happy. Vethiol actually looks pretty good again. Flackhead's all right. Like, these are the pieces you build around. You're not that far away from being a good team, mate. And it's not like you need an import. Dude, this domestic top laners you can take.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. There's domestic top laners you could take. This is actually the time where there's like the most domestic top laners available. Think about who you have available. Wonder, Alfari, Bwipo, that literally used to be top 3 best top laners in the entire LEC. Even if they're coming off breaks, those guys will be able to plug and play and perform.
Back. Yeah, come on. If you put all 3 of those in, one of them becomes like a top 3 top laner again, of course.
I'll always take a chance on Wonder, man. Like, with the performance of that guy, I'll always take a chance on him. Also, I was a little bit triggered. Here's something that you'll appreciate, because you always really, like history. So there was a narrative after Odo made finals. Was he a better all-time player than like Wonder and Soaz and all these guys with like this finals appearance. And to me, I just thought this was like one of the most, like, if you think about who Wonder was, and like his peak was like he was actually beating Asian top laners, like he was beating the best top laners in the world at his peak. And then you compare that to like the consistent, it's like Odo's been consistent. It's like he made it to finals and got 3-0'd in like one of the weakest splits ever. Like I think Odo's a good player, but the idea that he like has now like elevated himself to being over Odo Omne all the time, like I just can't even begin to fuck with this type of logic.
No, the problem with that one basically is it's the number one trap, I actually think, when people do historical rankings, which is just longevity. I mean, the most obvious example right now is the LeBron James angle. Like, spoiler, guys, if you've watched basketball, LeBron playing 3 or 4 extra seasons didn't actually make him like twice as good at basketball. Like, he's actually not even that far. His level's even pretty much the same. But what people want to do is their brain just goes like, yeah, but he did it for longer. It's like, but here's my problem with that topic, right? Is look, obviously you can't just have like a 1-year wonder player. You have to have like a proper career. Yes. But at the same time, whenever you talk about the greatest players of all time, there is an element to which you are saying at some point in their career, that player is the best player to ever play that position, that spot. So logically, that's why longevity alone can't do it, because this argument's the perfect one, right, Dom? Because if we take the best ever Odo Amne, which to be fair to Odo Amne fans, would probably be the season 6 one where he played some Jace carry and that it wasn't like the weak side. But even if we take generally in his career, he's not better than like peak Soaz or Wonder, like you say. Like those
Soaz and Wonder are the two.
Reason they were like winning tournaments or in massive finals. Like the difference is Odo Amne, what's always impressed me about his career is the flaw of his career. It's why he's such a good weak side player. Their careers were about the fucking ceiling that we're talking about. I mean, obviously Wonder especially was like, dude, he actually might have been the best top player in the world, guys. That's not even a fucking troll. Like Soaz was more like in the era when you couldn't beat them, he could compete with them, he could do all the first pick shit. Like, no, I agree. Like peak Wonder probably is the best ever, mate. Like as in if I have to take a player for one game, you're taking him, aren't you? You're not taking Odo Amne. In fact, Odo Amne has got the same problem Impact does, because you notice the overrate Impact the same way, Dom. They go like, oh, but is he like the best top laner? It's like, no, but the problem with that player is he enables another player. Like if you're the best, you have to be you. It's why when I do the NBA thing about LeBron, the reason I always actually have a knock on LeBron is like, you're the ones all telling me he passes all the time. Like in basketball, at the end of the day, he put the ball in the hoop. Like I want the player that does that. So I agree. I know what you mean. I can see why it's like, it's not a terrible bit of analysis. Like longevity does matter, but if people make it number one, it'll just fuck it up completely.
Yeah, no, you can't have peak being less valuable than longevity. Like obviously longevity, if somebody has a 1-year peak and somebody is another guy is good for 12 years, obviously then there's a point when longevity can overtake peak. But if they're at all comparable, like also if you think about the floor of Wonder's career, I mean the worst placing he ever had was like in this dog shit Fnatic lineup, you know, at the beginning of season that was just completely fucking doomed from the start, where like he didn't even get to play the game. It's like a 9-game split. And then if you look at like the rest of his career, I mean, he's always going to playoffs. He's always going to like, besides for that G2 year, I mean, he was pretty much always going to Worlds. Like this guy was mega consistent for a long time and he was always relevant. So yeah, I just thought that was a weird point to me. Like I think that it's just people get so like wrapped up in the moment where it's like Odo has a pop-off series and they're like, what's the nicest thing I could say about Odo? Because I'm like so happy with his performance. Like he's the best of all time. It's like, what the fuck? Like where did this come from? Like how do we get here?
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.